are listening to Talking Hoosier Baseball, a podcast by fans from the iubase.com website for anyone wanting more info on Indiana University baseball. Today is Monday, February 25th, 2019. I'm Josh Bennett, joined by stats guru Cassidy Palmer, master of the RPI Carl James, and the man who'll be moving all over the Bart Tuesday and Wednesday trying to find that magical spot to change our luck, Chris Feeney. Well, there's no way to sugarcoat this past weekend, folks. The Hoosiers went down to SEC country and were absolutely dominated by the Volunteers, who outscored IU 21-4 en route to an ugly sweep down in Knoxville. The Hoosiers led for only 4 innings the entire series, which came on Sunday. All 4 series runs came via solo home runs. Not a single Hoosier had a multi-hit game, and Tennessee pitchers tied their single-game record for most strikeouts on Saturday by fanning a remarkable 21. The Hoosiers were also shaky on the infield and were officially charged with 6 errors on the weekend, with some other questionable decisions mixed in that directly led to runs. But to be fair, none of us were able to watch the game in person. We could only watch it on TV, and only the first 2 at that. We only had audio for the finale. From a few people we've talked to that were at the games, Tennessee pitchers were just really nasty, especially on Saturday and Sunday when the 2 starters were consistently hitting 94 and the closer coming in touched 97. So I'd be surprised if this isn't a much improved team from last year that'll make some noise in the SEC. That said, even on bad weekends, there are also some bright spots. So let's get started with our Hoosier highlights. So for me, something I'm always interested to see is someone making their debut in the cream and crimson, especially when it's an Indiana native. So my Hoosier highlight this week, I'm going to go with Jasonville, Indiana's Braden Scott, making his pitching debut on Saturday. Braden came into Saturday's game in the 6th inning with the Hoosiers already trailing 8-0, and through 2 innings, only giving up 2 hits and 1 run. He did need 57 pitches to get those 6 outs, but did a nice job to work out of a huge jam and limit the damage. So, Cass, what's your Hoosier highlight this week?
For me, I'm gonna go with the IU softball team. They have stayed undefeated. They are now 14-0, one of just 5 remaining collegiate softball teams that are undefeated. This included a come-from-behind victory over the weekend where they went down 0-5 and came back to win. And then also on the softball side, Tara Trainer, the pitcher, was named Big Ten Player of the Week for the 2nd straight week and was also a National Player of the Week with she has a 4-0 record and had a .28 ERA over the weekend, 37 strikeouts, 25 innings pitched. Doesn't get much better than that. So how about your highlight, Chris?
All right, for me, I'm going to go with the outfield defense. Opening day, we saw Dunham, Gorski, and Kalita out there. And then this weekend, it's Crail, Ashley, and Kalita. And I don't know if they really thought they were going to be starting or whatever the case might have been, but they played really well. From what the announcers were saying, they were really impressed, whether it was plays in right field. I mean, basically, it was line to line, gap to gap. We were making plays. Kalita covering ground, Crail getting to the line. So especially for starts that might not have been expected, they really played well. I even can remember a throw by Ashley behind the runner at second base, because it's not just getting to the ball. It's throwing to the right base. It's making sure you get the ball in quick. And from all accounts, we really played some really good outfield defense. So I'll go with that for getting swept for the weekend. You know what? If the outfield can really be solid, no matter who's out there, that's impressive. What about you, Carl?
I'm also going to go on the defensive end, and the Tennessee announcers were very impressed with Ryan Feynman's defensive performance on Sunday. He had a really nice catch in foul territory, and he threw out a base runner with runners on first and third. And obviously, Jeremy Houston was part of that as well, and they managed to not only get the guy at second, who was coming from first, but they also didn't allow a guy to score. So I will say that is my highlight for this week. And now, even on a rough week, we still give out the red belts. Chris, who's getting the belts this week?
All right, win or lose, red belts will always be won. Whether you get swept, lose a series 2-1, whatever the case. So to this week's red belts, for the pitcher, okay, for the Joey Donato Award, I'm going to go with Connor Manis. He pitched 3 innings at the back end of the Sunday game to keep that game close. He kept it a 2-run game. We had opportunities to come back. We had some base runners on. We had chance to come back in that ball game. And a big part of that is because he held them off the board. I believe he gave up 1 run and 2 hits, but in 3 innings compared to some of the other stuff we were doing over the weekend, that was really well. So Connor's going to get that one. As far as the Tony Butler red belt, Logan Kaleta grabs it for that over-the-shoulder dead sprint in center field in the rain. From what it sounded like, he just about was on the warning track, which means that wall's in his face. He's got to cover the ground. He's got to make the play. So that's the defensive red belt, the Tony Butler Award. For hitting, for the Alex Dickerson, this one's twofold. Number one, he hit his first career home run in D1 baseball, Cade Bennell. And number 2, he was the only starter, okay, to not strike out. Now, he did strike out on Saturday as a pinch hitter, but he started Friday and he started Sunday, and he did not strike out, which compared to some of the other numbers with the K's, it was very impressive that Cade did not strike out the entire weekend while starting. He did have 1 as a pinch hitter. So for week 2, we're going to have Logan Kaleta, we're going to have Connor Manis, and Cade Bennell.
Okay. All right, that didn't work. Sorry.
Sometimes the weekend goes the way the podcast goes.
Yeah,
right?
it does.
We
it
just
does.
got swept.
There it is.
You've got mail. You've got mail.
Oh my goodness, it keeps coming in.
You've got mail.
The mail just keeps coming in. We've got mail. All right, we've got mail. It's mailbag time. And we're going to get right into it because we've got lots of questions. And our first mailbag question this week is going to go to Cassidy, and it's from Lisa. And Lisa asks, can we just get the offense and defense playing well at the same time?
Yeah, I know that we can. And I've been looking at numbers today, and the Hoosier offense has the unfortunate tendency to start off slow. Year after year after year. It kind of doesn't matter who we play, where we play them. The offense is sluggish to start the season across the board. The pitching's a little more hit and miss. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's mediocre. Sometimes it's not so great. So I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, we'll get them both consistently clicking at the same time. It usually starts to even out a bit by the time we get to mid-March. So I would look for that. Don't be too panicked quite yet. And so I'm going to send this right back at you, Carl. Keegan asks, I know it's a smallish sample, but do you feel the massive increase in strikeout rate is changing coaching philosophy or more to do with weather and being harder to get the ball in play when it's cold?
Well, Keegan, to answer your question, Cassidy kind of will probably discuss this later when it comes to comparing times of the year. But in general, this is a tougher strikeout period for the Hoosiers than most years. I don't know that it's the cold because they've had this problem even when they've gone to warm locations. I think it's just one thing that might be a factor in this is that they haven't been outside much. And if you talk to any hitters, hitting inside Mellencamp is not like hitting in an actual outside baseball facility. And so much of hitting is about sight and is about seeing it. And it's just very difficult to practice that inside. So that is one factor that can be getting in the way. Josh mentioned another, which is Tennessee pitching was really, really, really good this past weekend. So I think when you look at a situation like what the Hoosiers saw, there's probably a lot of things that are going to factor into that. So here's another question. This one's going to go for Chris. Aaron asks, what things are you looking for to be different under Coach Mercer than were under Coach Lemonis? It appears Mercer may be more of a small ball type of guy, while Lemonis had players swinging for the fences. I also thought Lemonis did a lot of things well, but never was the best at developing players outside of Gorski. And the hope is Mercer is better at this.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Now, a couple things. As the Mercer staff took over, a lot of things that we heard about it was going to be a more analytical approach, okay, going more by the numbers, going more off what the plan, what the system says to do, on who to even recruit, on who to run, on who to hit, on what lineups to use. So that's something that will be a definite change. Also, we're going to see more shifts, and it sounds like we saw a bunch of more shifts just in the Tennessee series than we were used to seeing. Let's see, the hitting approach, we've heard a lot about that, picking different pitches, knowing when to go, different base running style. These were all things that was going to be different in the Mercer regime. Also, nutrition, going to be a big focus on the nutrition and the mental health approach. They actually had a mental specialist over at Wright State. I don't know if we're going to be employing one here. Now, as far as the player development, I mean, there have been, like, Jonathan Stever got a lot better. Paulie Milto got a lot better. Timmy Herron got a lot better. I know Dietler wasn't a freshman with Coach Lemo, but he got a lot better. So there were a lot more player development strides than I think a lot of us maybe are even thinking about with Coach Lemonis. But yes, Coach Mercer, big on player development, big on realizing that, you know what, the whole idea of this, your college baseball career, is to get you ready for a professional career somewhere, whether that's baseball, whether that's in finance, whether that's, whatever you choose to do. It's to make you a better young man and get you out in the world and be prepared. So that is something big in the Mercer regime. As far as the small ball stuff, I think Lemo had more big power hitters too. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. But I know I've heard Coach Mercer say several times that it's going to be a little bit different around here. We are not going to wait for the 3-run home run. This weekend was rough because all we got was some solo shots and not many rallies. And I know it's rough to see, you get pumped up for the season and then this is how it starts off. But it is just, it's one weekend, and that's just what we're going to have to deal with right now. But thank you for the question, Aaron. Now, what I have is a question from Jeff, again, from the Student Athletic Board. And I spoke with him earlier today, and they are pumped up. They're going to have the drum out tomorrow. The whole crew's going to be there. They're really looking forward to try to get some fan interaction, clapping with them, cheers, whatever the case might be. And, being closer to the field for them, I definitely know they're looking forward to, and I think we are too. And I know these times are rough and the weather's not going to be the best. But you know what? Let's just look at it as it's still opening day. It's still the home opener. And when that first weekend really kicks in, I know then it'll be for real. But Jeff's question is, let's see. Now I got to keep my eye on it here. Okay, his question is, what weaknesses do you think got exposed against a really solid Tennessee team, and how do you think this team can adapt? And we're going to kick this one over to Josh.
Okay, thanks, Chris. The infield defense is leaving much to be desired, in my opinion. We have seen some remarkable plays also, but I think with a minor change or two, that shouldn't be a lingering issue, so I wouldn't say that's something that we can't adapt and overcome. But I am becoming concerned with our approach at the plate and inability to just put the ball in play. I understand that with the shift to putting so much weight on analytics, like what Chris was saying, launch angle, on base plus slugging, etc., the game's changing. And the focus is going away from batting average and more towards doing damage when you actually put it in play. It seems like when we were a lot of the hits were going for extra bases. I'm guessing that Cass probably has a stat or two that she can confirm that in a recap. And I completely understand and agree with that philosophy in Major League Baseball, but this is college baseball. How many times watching a game at this level have you seen a routine ground ball misplayed that has turned into runs? We have a lot of great athletes, guys with great speed, put the ball in play and make the other guys make a play. The only way to not reach base 100% of the time is to strike out. Oh, wait. Let me take that back. 99% of the time, because we did manage to reach base twice on Saturday after a strikeout. But I think you get what I'm saying. That said, I definitely think they can adapt, but it will be interesting to see if they do or if they just stick with the process and wait for it to hopefully click. So thanks for the question, Jeff. We can't wait to see you guys out there and the energy that you're going to bring this season. But that'll do it for this week's mailbag. Anyone wanting to submit a question can do so by sending a tweet to IUBase at IUBase17 or at C at the Bart, or you can also send us an email at gohoosiers@iubase.com. And with that, we'll send it over to Cass for her week 2 stat recap. Take it away, Cass.
Thank you. So as you can probably guess, the big thing I looked at with this weekend series was the strikeouts. There was just no getting around that. You strike out 21 times in a game, I'm going to take a look at it. So the Hoosiers did strike out 46 times in the 3 games, had 105 total plate appearances. So that means they struck out 44% of the time they walked up to the plate. You're never going to get offense that way. You can hit solo shots as much as you want. You strike out almost half the time. It's just not going to work. And actually a full third of those strikeouts came with a runner on base. And about a quarter of the strikeouts were with a runner in scoring position. That's just not a recipe for success. And it was kind of a mixed bag as far as being too patient or being overly aggressive, because almost 20% of those strikeouts, the batter took the first 3 pitches, no matter whether it was a ball or a strike, they took the first 3 pitches. And you just didn't see guys swinging at the first 3 pitches they saw very much. And a full half of those strikeouts came in a 1-2 count. So they were already behind in the count to begin with. So there's definitely a lot to parse out in those strikeouts, but moral of the story is it's just too much. There is a little bit of hope in there, though. I went back and looked at the last 5 years of strikeouts by month, strikeouts per game by month. And February, by far, across the board, is always the highest strikeout month, without fail. And then March, April, May, it goes pretty far down. Last year alone, it went from almost 11 per game to 6.5 per game. And as a whole, February had about 2 more strikeouts per game than any other month. So there is hope that like we said, these early season games are just, whether it's cold or whether it's adrenaline, first couple times outside, any of that, there is hope that it should even out in the next couple of weeks. Other offensive notes, the batting averages, like with the strikeouts, they're not looking so good. Of the 9 qualifying batters, 6 are below the Mendoza line, and nobody's batting above 300 yet. At the same time, 45% of the hits are going for extra bases. So when they're getting contact, they're hitting it hard. Some of them, there were several atom balls over the weekend. Some of this is going to even out. It's just going to take a little bit of time. On the pitching side, 9 runners who eventually scored reached base on a walk, HBP, or error. That's 43% of the runs over the weekend. Got a free pass. That's not going to be a winning recipe either. This one blew my mind. Tennessee had 42 at-bats with runners in scoring position. And they got 11 hits in those at-bats, which is a .262 average, not anything big to write home about, but that's relatively high with runners in scoring position. There were 56 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, and they had an additional 12 walks. So 21% of their plate appearances with runners in scoring position ended in a walk. That's 41% of them with runners in scoring position getting either a hit or a walk. That's not going to help if the offense isn't giving you anything either. So it's it's looking a little rough right now, but it usually is in February. So I'm not going to be too super concerned until we get into mid-March and these trends. So, Carl, what else has happened in the college baseball world? Is there anything a little more optimistic out there?
Well, misery loves company. So I'm going to start with the preseason Big Ten coach's favorite, Minnesota. They dropped a series at Dallas Baptist this weekend. And let's be honest, Dallas Baptist is by no means a slouch. This is a team that's probably going to be competing for a regional host. But they were only able to win the Saturday game. And the Saturday game was the one that featured returning Big Ten Pitcher of the Year, Patrick Fredrickson. And he did pitch well. However, Minnesota almost lost that game because of giving up 4 runs by middle relief. It was closed out by their ace, Max Meyer. And that was the one game that they won. And the Gophers are now actually even a little bit below the Hoosiers at 2-5 to start the year. On a positive note out of the Big Ten, the team that seems to really be impressing, and they cracked D1 baseball's top 25 today, is Illinois. They've established themselves early by staying undefeated, going to Florida Atlantic and sweeping a series there. So it's kind of the talk right now is that Illinois and Michigan may be the teams to beat in the Big Ten. We don't know quite yet about Michigan. They swept at the Citadel. But they just haven't had any real significant competition yet. They're also undefeated, but that's going to change. Michigan's heading out west, and they've got a ton of big competition coming up over the next week and a half. So we're going to get a good look at Michigan. Nebraska went to Arizona to challenge the defending national champion in Oregon State. And well, they didn't. It was an 0-4 sweep. It was but again, that tells us about as much as Michigan sweeping the Citadel. So it's we're gonna have to see Nebraska probably play a more middle of the road competition. We're going to need to see Michigan go play some real competition to get an idea on really where those teams are headed. And as I said, it's all early, and even a team like Minnesota, maybe they're like IU, and they just need to work some things out, and things may turn around. So lots of baseball left to be played. Well, now that the Hoosiers are trying desperately to forget the trip to Knoxville, one good way to do that is some home cooking. Indiana gets a pair of midweek games at the BART in February before heading to the beach in South Carolina. So, Chris, tell us about the upcoming opponents for this week.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, it's 5 games in 6 days against 5 different teams. So it's a real test for the depth of this team, man. It really is. Home openers tomorrow, 3 o'clock start. That's against Cincinnati. Alex Franklin on the mound. He's going to be starting. So that's definitely exciting. We'll have Bloomington South Zone to open up the BART this year. Now, Cincinnati's 1-5 on the season. Okay. They were just 28-28 last year and just 8-15 on the road. But they've beaten us the last 5 out of 6 times going back to 2015. So for whatever reason, they seem to have our number. I know the last one was that real cold home opener. We didn't even have the scoreboard. We moved to the day. John Bauer was out there flipping, pages for scores. It was just a pretty wild scene. But they've beaten us a lot lately. So it'd be real good to, get out there and get in number 1 at the BART. Let's actually win this time this year. A bat to look out for is Joey Reamer. He's a sophomore outfielder. He already has 11 hits. He's hitting .458, and he gets on base a lot. He's got 6 walks as well. And then we get over to Wednesday, same deal, 3 p.m. start, but this time it'll be Gabe Bierman starting for the Hoosiers, and that's against Butler. Now, Butler was 34-20 last year and 12-8 on the road. Okay, we swept them at the BART. I believe it was a doubleheader and then a single game. It was a split up. Oh, it was the Limo Hat week. It was the Limo Hat doubleheader weekend. Yeah. Now they've lost 2 in a row and are 2-3 on the season. So they've started off a little bit slow. A bat to look out for Butler is Kyle Smith. He has 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 7 runs scored already. He's a senior outfielder, and he's a JUCO transfer, so he was not on the team last year at the BART when we played them. So it looks like they really brought in a pretty big bat to help them out this season. Now, we get a day off, but of course, that's a travel day. I don't know if they're busing it or flying or whoever the case, but Thursday, the Hoosiers will be traveling down to Myrtle. And we went there last year. A lot of you guys might know. Played real well, actually. This entire tournament, though, is going to be spent at the home of Coastal Carolina. This one's a little bit different. Last year, we were mixing back and forth between stadiums and stuff. But this one's all at Coastal's house. Now, we got Northeastern on Friday at 2 p.m. Okay, they're 4-2 on the season. They've won 3 in a row if you take out their loss to the Boston Red Sox. They played an exhibition against the Sox. That one obviously doesn't count. They did beat Missouri, so they have an SEC win. That was at a neutral site. They was 36-21 last year. They made the tournament. They were knocked out in 2, though. They lost to Auburn, and then they lost to the host, NC State. So Northeastern will be the first game. That's actually game 2 of a doubleheader for them on Friday. Strange setup. We're actually playing them on the back end of a doubleheader, 2 different teams. Now, a bat to look out for them is Corey DiLoretto. He has 8 RBIs with 10 hits. He's slugging .810. So he's coming out of the gate pretty fast. They play UConn at 10:30, and then they'll play us at 2. And then on Saturday, we get breakfast with the Hoosiers, 10:30 a.m. against the UConn Huskies. Let's see, they're 3-3 on the season. They have taken 2 out of 3 from Louisville, though, so they got some big wins there. They were 37-22 last season. A lot of people thought they might have hosted a regional, but they didn't.
They should have hosted a regional. Sorry.
Right? A lot of people said that. Yeah.
I said that.
You said that too, and you had them in your bracket hosting, right?
Yeah.
So they were a good squad last year. And what they did was they actually got sent to the Coastal Regional, and they knocked Coastal out. Washington ended up winning that regional by beating UConn, but they made it to the regional final. So UConn, and they're going to be pumped up going back to the Coastal Regional after playing so well. So it should be a real challenge up against them. A big bat for them is Anthony Prado. He has 10 hits, 4 doubles, 14 total bases already. Last year, he stole 18 bags. He played at the Cape last season. He was on the Bourne Braves, and he's a junior out of Staten Island, New York. So he's got a little East Coast in him, probably got a little edge on him. Nothing wrong with that, Anthony Prado. Sunday, we're going to wrap it up against the host of the site, Coastal Carolina. They're ranked number 20th right now by D1. They're 7-1. They just lost their first game, actually, and that was in extras to NC State. They have wins against Kent State, Campbell, and you're like, who are they? They're good. So those are good wins already. They've also beat Maryland. They beat Michigan State twice. So, like I said, they hosted last year, and they're ranked again. A big bat for them is Parker Chavers. He was the freshman All-American team last year. Hit .323. He's already come out of the gate strong as far as offense and defense. Last year, he had 3 or 4 web gems that put him on ESPN Sports Center. So this kid's for real. He plays a real good outfield. He can hit, basically anything that, he's 5 tools. So we got to keep an eye out for him. Now, I was obviously at the games last year, but I would assume the environment's going to be pretty good, especially for the Coastal game. A big test for us. Again, if it's Tommy Summer on the Sunday slate, I'm not sure, but I'd say that's the big one. Coastal's the big one. That's the real RPI helper. Not that all 3 aren't, but, the focus would really be on the Coastal game, I would think. And, Tennessee was rough, but maybe this is what the team needs. 5 teams in 6 days in 2 states. No time to think about all the strikeouts. No time to think about any of that. We'll go out there, hopefully take care of business at home, and then hit that 3-team tournament running. We'll see what happens. I'm going to kick it over to Josh for his final thoughts.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chris. IU just released their promo schedule for home games this past week, and I'd like to share a few of the highlights with our listeners. First off, if you want to see the Hoosiers in action this week, I've got some good news for you. Not only will you be able to get the 2019 schedule posters and the cards, but you'll also be able to get into both the games for free. More good news is that all 3 of the season-long promotions will be back. Chick-fil-A with the K Tracker, Buffalo's with the first hit of the game, and Bloomington Bagel with their shutout promotion. Along that same line, the Kids Eat Free on Tuesdays are back. Bo and Drew were definitely excited to hear that. They're big fans of stadium hot dogs. And then throwback night with Luke on the Oregon will be Wednesday, March 27th versus Kent State. IU Sox on April 13th. Chick-fil-A tank tops on Wednesday, April 10th versus Purdue. Mini bats on May 16th. Pink night, sorority night is Tuesday, April 16th versus Ball State. Another big one is firework night. This year, that's Friday, April 26th. And probably the most special of all is Senior Day. As usual, it'll be on the final home game of the season. And this year, that's on Saturday, May 18th versus Rutgers. If you can only make it to one game this season, I would ask that you make it to this one. It's the last chance you'll have to thank the seniors for everything that they've given to the program and let them know just how much you've appreciated watching their careers at IU. I will say that one thing that really disappointed me when I saw the promos is the fact that the kids will only be allowed to run the bases and get autographs and pictures with the players for only 3 games this season. That was the one thing, in my opinion, that guaranteed game day would be special to all the kids, getting to go on the field and run the bases or throw a ball, even just for 10 minutes. And win or lose, you could never tell with those guys. They were always so great with the kids. That was the one thing that really separated the experience at the BART over, say, a pro game, where it doesn't feel as intimate or that there's any connection at all with the team. Some kids may only get to make 1 game or 2 this season, and I hate that they may miss out on that opportunity. Just very disappointed in that decision, and hopefully they'll rethink it in the future. Anyway, rant over. This year they'll be able to go down on the field Sunday, March 17th and 24th and April 14th. So if that's something you want your kids to be able to do, and I would highly recommend that, make sure you make one of those games. There are many others that I didn't list, and if you want the full list, you can go to iuhoosiers.com for that. Those were just the ones that stood out for me. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Read up on all things Indiana baseball at our website, iubase.com. Follow us on Twitter at CUAtTheBart and at IUBase17. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. For Cassidy Palmer, Chris Feeney, and Carl James, this is Josh Bennett signing off, and we'll see you at the BART this week.
I keep it hidden in my pocket with a rosary. I told the driver of the bus that he had a deal. By the morning I'll be with her in the golden fields. I'm going back to Indiana now.